I think we all felt a bit lost sometimes, including Cadian, and that is obviously not optimum when you're playing against some of the best teams in the world. Of course, it wasn't all Cadian's fault. I think it is on all of us. We are a team of 5 individuals that have to perform and communicate together. In terms of style, obviously me and Cadian are 2 different players with 2 different types of personalities, so naturally we are not going to have the same play style nor the same idea of how to play the game. In specifics of how my style is different from his, I'm actually not too fond of putting that into words myself. I think that is more up to the analysts and other people in the business to see how we actually play. Well, Mr. Valde, today is indeed your lucky day, as North's style of play and calling on the terrorist side is precisely the topic of this video. Having most recently competed at the EPL Season 9 finals and the ECS Season 7 finals, we'll be breaking down some terrorist rounds from the Danes with a particular focus on Valde's calling. Dust 2 is towards the middle of North's pool, and thus it seems a good place to start when gauging their terrorist approaches. During this round, North went for a fairly standard default. FaZe decided to play 4 towards A, and soon they'll utilise this surplus of players by contesting short control. Following the molly, Olaf swings out short on a flash, and knowing he'd still be in the open, North commit straight into their short take and pick up an opening kill. Off the back of this entry, North are going to smoke CT mid and throw the out tunnel smoke before falling back towards long. Talking through this mid round, North knew there was an AWP near the A site, and having thrown smokes towards mid and B, you'd expect FaZe to leave long lesser defended, and crucially, it was unlikely an AWP would be nearby. With this information, the decision from Valde is to contact out of long doors, giving no warning to the CTs, and as you'll see in a couple of moments, everything becomes very chaotic since FaZe are committing themselves to a double long setup. I don't think it has been an issue so far, and actually I've been quite pleased with our T sides, but obviously they can always get better. Mid-round calling is probably the most challenging thing when you're playing at the top level, because the mid-round calling is not set in place. You can't really practice it. Every time you're going to end up in a new situation. During this scenario, I think the complexity of the mid-round calling and awareness to go full contact into long are the most impressive aspects to me. Whether this was the best call though, given the circumstances, remains up for debate. Staying on the topic of Valde's mid-round decisions, let's quickly explore the following scenario. As you can see, North are grouping outside of long, and in a moment they'll move in for the control with the pair of long smokes. Over on the defense, FaZe still have 2 players nearby. Neo gets off a great counter molly which forces Gade out, and despite losing the first, North answers back with a couple of kills onto the CTs. During this take, Neo's Molotov meant Gade was forced forward before any flashes could push the AWP back. However, with teammates close behind, Neo was quickly found in the open, and North was gifted a very lucky kill through the smoke onto Nico. Reverting attention to our main point of focus, note the nades for North. They have just committed their 4th smoke onto Xbox, meaning they only have a single one remaining to aid them in crossing from long onto the A site, and instead of winging it with 1 smoke, North chooses to swing out with 3 players on a flash. Now the reason I like this call from Valde is because it keeps things simple and gives the CTs minimal time to react, whereas had a smoke been used for the cross, there would have been opportunities for counter nades alongside giving the defenders something to play around and close ground to the site. All is not perfect though for Valde's squad on Dust 2, and here they have 4 players in mid with Kiebi alone in upper tunnels. After smoking CT mid, Yugi continues to pick onto the B site and finds a crucial entry onto Nitro. Accelerating behind the entry are Valde and Kiebi, trying to pinch onto the site, but unfortunately for them, Stewie comes in clutch, killing both the North players. From my perspective, the right decision here was to collapse onto the B site as fast as possible, and although Kiebi and Valde probably could have been more coordinated when moving onto the site at the same time, the major concern for me was that both Gade and AZ were sitting back towards mid. In this scenario, only a single player is required to throw an entry flash alongside holding the push through the CT smoke, where an extra player going through the window would have made for an almost certain trade kill. Talking generally for a moment about North on Dust 2, later on we'll look into Inferno, and quickly you'll notice that the Danes appear considerably more flushed out in comparison to these dusty streets. Throughout the games I reviewed, there were a decent number of team play mistakes. Ranging in severity, these led to an overall feeling that North were lacking refinement that is present in the top teams. Alongside team play errors, I question the depth of Valde's playbook on Dust 2 at the current time. Many rounds had North grouping fairly early into trying to force out executes in the absence of heavy map pressure to draw out the CT's nades, which had them punished on a few occasions. Although, playing Devil's Advocate, Dust 2 is a map where you can get away with this playstyle more so than others due to the limited options for information plays on the CT side. Moving over to Inferno, the next thing we're going to look at is a pair of explosive plays for map control from the North squad. In a moment, two players will be flashed out of Boiler, and then they'll look for some fights towards short. Watching this unfold, we can see that Gade and Kiebi fall to the phase defenders, leaving North with a sizable disadvantage and soon to be in a 2 versus 5 scenario. Now you're probably thinking that was a little crazy from North, and in some senses you'd be correct. However, plays like this are not always totally far-fetched. Evaluating again from an overview, the first thing to note is that FaZe smoked off mid, and from the T's perspective, if you're playing CS by the book, then you should be waiting out this smoke before going for brackets control. Most of you will be used to teams smoking long when going for brackets, but instead North uses a molly, and from watching them, this is indeed their preferred method. With regards to this round though, the main thing to note is that a molly pops faster, which makes an explosive play like this more viable. The idea behind this call is to catch the short player, whilst the pairing of Gade and Kiebi have decent trade potential, meaning if a single player was close to Porch, he probably gets traded onto. Unfortunately for North, FaZe were probably in one of the best possible setups on this occasion, and that's just how the cookie crumbles, sometimes in professional Counter-Strike. Looking into another explosive play for map control, on this round North lost a player early towards Banana, and in response the call from Valde is to throw the wrap smoke onto long. Next up, Gade and Kiebi are flashed through the mid smoke before moving extremely aggressively towards Arch side, where they'll get a little lucky with a kill onto Taco. From this point onwards, the round falls apart for the Danish side, but reflecting on the call from Valde, there are two aspects to discuss, and the first of these is the near instant decision from going a man down into making an aggressive play. I think if you are not decisive or able to show that authority when needed, you don't belong as a leader on a team. It is as simple as that. When most people think about explosive approaches in CS, what likely comes to mind is explosive executes onto bomb sites. However, displayed here are different types of explosive play as North seeks out map control. Throughout the previous two rounds, both occasions had a pair of players going for the control, which ensured decent trade potential. This is what distinguishes North from a team like Furia with regards to their more individual aggressive plays. Both put opponents under pressure and have their own advantages alongside disadvantages. Watching on board with Gade, in a couple of seconds we'll see him move out for brackets control alongside a little mistake from Kiebi to not be closer and retain good trade potential. As Gade comes into brackets, Guardian shoots and he hears another towards Arch, throwing nades. With this information, Gade swings out long and gets an impactful entry onto Neo. From here, North immediately makes the decision to move into a hit on the B site. However, grouping towards Car, this coincides with FaZe's Banana retake. Rain here is traded onto, and now the Danes get destroyed by Nico, likely regretting going ahead of the entry flash. Since we've already discussed Valde's decisive mid-round calling, I want to quickly focus on the entry from Gade. For some, a single player just running in, swinging out and getting an entry might seem par for the course, especially if you're partial to the odd hug. But at this top level, this sort of thing is risky and subsequently fairly uncommon. In this scenario, the shot from Guardian tells Gade there's no AWP on Arch side, and once he hears the nades from Neo, he knows he might catch a player off guard and at worst force a fight against a rifler. Now of course, in the moment this is all quite instinctive from Gade, but players having the confidence and space to take initiative is not always a given. All of the players on the team know that if they see something, then they have the freedom to go for the play and with their own gut feeling. I think without that freedom, you actually cannot be a top team. When I look at the other top teams, that is also what I see. A lot of rounds are not decided by a tactic or the call overall, it's more so where a player sees something and goes with his gut feeling. In comparison, I think North are considerably stronger on Terrorist Inferno versus Dust 2, and touching on additional characteristics of Valde's squad on this map, they love to deny information and deter CT aggression at the expense of burning a lot of utility early, doing more so than most top teams. My biggest concerns for North on Inferno alongside most of the maps is late round play. During these games it wasn't terribly common for rounds to go the full distance, and the manner in which Valde is calling, moving aggressively into taking map control alongside grouping early for executes, means North often are making decisions with limited information, placing more emphasis on reading from previous rounds and preparation before matches. Throughout the video, we've clearly put a lot of focus on Valde, but the other leadership change that took place within North recently was the swap from Abe to Mither as their coach towards the start of this year. I think it is very 50-50 between myself and Mither, and just about listening to each other and understanding each other's philosophy in terms of what we want to do. I think we have a healthy relationship where there is space for both of us, and so far I think we've had some really good teamwork. Overall, I see many promising signs from North, including Valde's relationship with Mither, alongside the atmosphere between the players outside of the matches themselves. Although I'm not fully convinced Valde is the most well-rounded leader at the current time, his decisive approaches and work ethic towards improvement may see North rising the ranks in coming months. What do you guys think of Valde's calling? With hindsight, do you agree with the removal of Cadian? Why don't you comment below with your thoughts? Thanks again to Valde for the interview, and if you enjoyed that one, why don't you hit that like button, get subscribed, follow me on Twitter, all that good stuff. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.